You know that feeling when you're standing in an old forest and it just feels permanent? Like it's been there forever, completely unchanged. Well, what we see as stillness is actually this incredibly delicate dance between stability and constant, powerful change. So that's what we're going to dig into today. The story of how our natural world holds itself together and, what happens when it gets pushed to its absolute limits. Right? It seems like such a simple question, but the answer is surprisingly complex. I mean, why doesn't a forest just suddenly turn into a desert or a grassland? What are the invisible rules keeping it a forest, year after year, even century after century? That's the big puzzle we're trying to piece together. Okay, so let's start with that feeling of balance. What do scientists actually mean when they say an ecosystem is stable? It's definitely not about being frozen in time. It's more like a state of dynamic equilibrium. And this is super important. It's not about one single animal or plant living forever. No, it's all about the bigger picture, that massively complex web of interactions. Predator and prey, plants and the things that pollinate them, all of it working together to keep the whole system running smoothly.
So, this really boils down to two main things. First, you've got consistent numbers. This just means the population of, say, rabbits or foxes or oak trees doesn't just swing wildly all over the place from year to year. And second, consistent types. It means you expect to find the same kinds of critters and plants there every time you visit. You really need both for an ecosystem to be considered stable.
A really great way to picture this is to think of a giant Jenga tower. Every single species, from the tiniest microbe in the soil to the biggest predator, is a critical block. And every little interaction between them helps keep that tower standing tall and strong. For a long, long time, it can seem perfectly still. But of course, that tower is never really left alone, is it? It's constantly being nudged and pushed by all these forces of change. The real question is, how big is the push? Is it just a gentle little wobble, or is it a huge shove that threatens to bring the whole thing crashing down? See, not all changes are created equal. A stable ecosystem can totally handle modest changes. Think of something like a seasonal flood or a bit of hunting. That's like someone carefully sliding one Jenga block out. The tower might wobble for a second, but it adjusts and it stays standing. But then you have the extreme changes, like a massive volcanic eruption or a sudden rise in sea level. These aren't just nudges. This is like someone kicking the entire table the tower is sitting on. And when that table gets kicked, well, not every block, not every species is going to have the same fate. These huge shifts in the environment create a pretty dramatic sorting process. You get clear winners, clear losers, and really, three possible outcomes. First up, the winners. For some species, the new conditions are like a golden ticket, a change that wipes out their main competitor or predator, that creates a massive opportunity. With all that pressure gone, their numbers can just skyrocket, completely exploding across the new landscape. Then, of course, you have the losers. These are the species whose traits just aren't a good fit for the new reality. If their food source disappears, or their home is destroyed, and they can't adapt or move fast enough, their population just dwindles, all the way down to zero. They vanish. Forever. But there's a third, kind of mysterious possibility. It doesn't happen overnight, of course, but over these immense stretches of time, what if a species doesn't exactly win or lose, but instead it adapts? It changes so much that it eventually becomes something entirely new. And that is the engine of evolution. So what happens after the old Jenga tower has completely collapsed? Does nature just give up? No way. From the rubble of the old world, a new one actually starts to rise. A whole new tower is built, block by block. This whole process is called ecological succession. So imagine a massive forest fire just clears the land. At first, you get these really tough pioneer species like grasses and weeds. Over time, they make the soil better, which allows shrubs and then new kinds of trees to grow. Fast forward decades, maybe centuries, and you have a forest again. But, and this is the key part, it's a new ecosystem with a different mix of species and interactions than what was there before. Now, for most of Earth's history, these big changes were driven by natural forces, volcanoes, ice ages, you name it. But today, there's one force pushing the blocks of that Jenga tower faster and harder than any other in history, us. And our impact is huge. We're not talking about those modest little changes anymore. Through things like widespread deforestation, fishing on an industrial scale, and introducing invasive species that just completely take over, we're triggering extreme system-level disruptions all over the planet. And here it is. If there's one thing you take away from all this, let it be this. Natural change usually happens over thousands, even millions of years. That gives life a chance to adapt, to evolve. But human-driven change is happening over decades. The environment is changing so ridiculously fast that many species simply don't have enough time to develop the traits they need to survive. So, when you look at it, the story of our planet is one of constant flux, of towers falling and new ones being built. Change itself isn't new, but the speed of the game has been fundamentally altered, and that leaves us with a really profound question to think about. As we keep pushing and pulling on the blocks of life, are we giving the rest of the natural world a fighting chance to keep up?